Welcome to Touch Technology Review. Today, we're going to take a look at Snapseed for iOS and Android. Snapseed is a pro-level photo editing application that allows you to enhance photos and apply digital filters. I remember when this original version of the software came out back in June 2011. It was then developed by Nix Software and was available on the iPad only. It was so ahead of its time that it was named iPad App of the Year. And I thought it was a very impressive app at the time. Building on the success of the iPad version, Nix Software launched Snapseed for iPhone later in August of 2011, and the rest, as they say, is history. The app continued to see regular updates and improvements and was ultimately acquired by Google. The new version now provides an even greater feature set with more professional features than the original. One of the new features is the ability to edit in RAW as well as JPEG. This has been out for some time, but it wasn't there in the first version. Now, for those of you not familiar with the RAW format, it's a professional standard image format which is completely uncompressed and contains more photo information than the popular JPEG format. RAW is highly useful not only for delivering the highest quality of image, but it carries more color and tonal information, which you can unlock in the editing process. For example, you can recover hidden detail in highlights and shadows that are often lost when an image is compressed. And this is certainly applicable when the image is under or overexposed. The iPhone 11 and iPhone 11 Pro can now shoot in RAW, along with the Pixel 3, 4, and Galaxy Note 10 Plus. So if you have one of these models, you can go into your camera settings and choose to shoot in RAW if you want to ensure that you're getting the best possible quality for post-production editing. Keep in mind, RAW files will take up more space, so I'd suggest keeping your camera set to JPEG for general purpose shooting and switching over to RAW for landscape photos, low light shooting, and any photo that you want to use commercially. But shooting in RAW isn't the only feature that makes Snapseed such a powerful photo editor. It truly is an incredible mobile app that gives you access to many of the advanced features that you would normally expect to find in high-end photo editing applications, such as Photoshop, yet more intuitive and easy to use. This includes an extensive filter set, crop tools, perspective correction, curves, enhanced portrait editing, HDR, text overlay, and more. So let's go ahead and check out all of the features of Snapseed with a few example photos I've taken with my iPhone XR. Step 1, download Snapseed from the Apple or Google Play Store. Once downloaded, open the app and click on the large plus button to add an image from your camera library. For those of you wanting to edit images from a DSLR or mirrorless camera, import your images into your phone first, so they're available to the app. As mentioned, Snapseed will import either RAW or JPEG images. If you look to the bottom of the screen, you'll notice that the Look submenu is highlighted, and just above it is a thumbnail view of the various looks you can apply to your image. You can go from the portrait mode to smooth, pop, accentuate, faded glow, morning, bright, and then we move into the black and white filters, including fine art, push, structure, and silhouette. All apply their own unique look and feel to your image. This can be a shortcut to getting a better image, and no doubt you're already familiar with this type of quick fix if you've ever used the photo editor on iOS 13, Instagram, or pretty much any mobile photo editing app. But the true value in the Snapseed app lies in the extensive set of adjustments that you can find in the Tools menu. So let's go ahead and check that out now. Before we do, I'm going to load up a different image. To access the tools, tap on the Tools submenu at the bottom of the screen. As you can see, we get access to around 28 tools for detailed editing. Let's take a look at each of these and see what they can do. To start with, we get the Tune Image option. Tap on it and place your finger on the image and swipe it left and right to adjust the level of brightness. And we can see at the top, it's automatically been adjusted to +7. If we want to adjust that further, we can just tap on the image and swipe left and right in order to increase or decrease the brightness of the image. The other parameters available to us can be accessed by tapping on the second icon along, and we then get a sub-menu including contrast. And once we tap on that option, again, we use our finger to swipe left and right over the image to adjust the contrast. Tap on the second icon again to saturation. Again, move it left and right in order to adjust the saturation. Ambience, which fills in some shadow detail. Highlights, which adjusts the highlight in the image. Shadows, which allows us to adjust the amount of shadow in the image. And finally, warmth, which allows us to adjust the color tone of the image, going from a warm to a cool image, again, swiping left and right. By the way, Snapseed's intuitive interface allows you to access these submenus by swiping with your finger up and down instead of using the second icon on the bottom of the screen in order to access the submenu items. Once you get used to it, this is a much more intuitive way of accessing the submenu options. Once we've completed that adjustment and we're happy with the image, select the tick option on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And after that, we can either export the image or continue into our tools section and add more effects. So let's go back into tools and select the next option, which is details. Details is a setting which allows you to provide more sharpness and contouring in your image. So once again, tap on the image and slide left and right to increase or decrease the detail in the image. And you can see as I move right, we're getting much more sharpness. And some of the detail in the tiles, for example, start to come out. If we go back to the left and reduce the setting, the whole image becomes a lot softer. So for architectural photography, I would usually increase the structure setting by at least 10 to 20, sometimes even as high as 30. Let's tap on the tools option again, and now we go into the curves option. This is truly a pro level feature that you normally find in Photoshop and other pro apps, and it's a great way to adjust the tonal information of the image using curves, which can be very easily adjusted, and you can apply very minute tweaks to the curve to get the exposure that you're looking for in all aspects of the image. So we're just going to tap on one of the points already on the curve, and I'll just show you the difference that it makes. Now we can tap on the curve, add more points, and tweak those by moving them up and down, left and right, and so on, until we get the exposure in the particular area that we're looking for exactly the way we want it. Now the curve that I applied just then was the RGB curve. So it applied changes to the whole spectrum of the image. You can actually isolate the curve down to red, green, or blue, or luminance by tapping on that first icon and selecting any of the sub options. So for example, if I felt the image had too much green in it, I've just gone over to the green curve and I can reduce some of the green pretty much anywhere within the image, from the sky to the midsection, the highlights to the shadows. And the curves give you so much more control over a basic image editor. The next icon on the bottom row allows you to hide the curve, so you can preview without any distraction the changes that you've made. And the next option along allows you to apply some curve presets that have already been set up by Snapseed that are optimized for different lighting conditions. So that's an overview very quickly of how to use curves in order to master your image. Let's go into the next option along, which is white balance. White balance is a whole topic in itself, but just to explain it very briefly, the white balance of an image can range anywhere from 0 to 5600K, and 5600K is a representation of full daylight. So when you shoot an image, sometimes your camera might not have the right setting, or it could be tricked into shooting a particular color cast that you want to see removed from that image. So by tapping on the white balance, we can adjust the level of white balance in post-production. The first option in the submenu is AW, which is auto white balance. And the next option is to change it by temperature or tint. So we'll start with the temperature. And again, we're going to use our finger and move it right in order to go higher towards 5600 Kelvin and left in order to go closer towards 0. And as you can see, we're really changing the overall look of the image quite drastically here by changing the color balance. And finally, for ultimate control, you can use the dropper tool, which allows us to select a white point in our image. If there's any white in your photo, this is really useful. So I'm going to go to the whitest point I can find in my image. There's actually a lady wearing a white top there, which should serve quite well. And as I place the dropper tool over that white section, you can see that the circle around it becomes highlighted in that color, which indicates whether you've actually selected the white point. So if I leave it at about there, that's going to give me the most faithful representation of the true temperature of that image, and that should be quite an accurate white balance. So if you're happy with that, select the tick option on the bottom right hand corner, and that will save the changes. Let's go back into tools and see what else is available to us. The next is the crop tool. Let's tap on that. And this, of course, allows us to crop our image. The first submenu item is selected by default. This is the freeform tool. So you can just tap on the corner edges of the box on the top and the bottom and crop your image to any size or shape that you like. So I've just gone from a regular crop here to a more panoramic look by cropping the top and the bottom of the image. There's some different presets available, including DIN, square, 3.2, 4.3, 5.4, 7.5, and 16.9 crop. So let's assume that we're working on a video production and we want to put this still image into it. We know that 16:9 is the most popular video format, so we could go ahead and select the 16:9 crop, which would be the most versatile for video editing. And we'll now go and save that crop by selecting the tick option in the bottom right hand corner. Let's go and explore some more tools. The next option is rotate, and this allows us to flip our image left and right or rotate it by 90-degree increments. This image doesn't need any flipping or rotating, so I'll leave it as is. So I'll select the cross on the bottom corner in order to exit without saving any of the changes. Let's go back to tools. And the next one is really useful for architectural photography. It's the perspective tool, which allows us to make adjustments to the vertical and horizontal plane and straighten up lines, which can really improve the look of the image. This one was shot pretty straight, to be honest with you, so not a lot of work is going to be required here. So by default, when you select the perspective tool, the scale option is already selected. When you're working with architectural photography, what we're trying to do is change the tilt and the rotation of the image in order to make it appear more accurate. So we're going to go ahead and select the first submenu option called tilt, and we're going to first of all work on the vertical tilt of the image by swiping on the image up and down. As we begin swiping, a grid appears on screen to help us make that alignment. If I swipe up a little bit, you'll notice that on the left-hand corner, the line is starting to become angular and it's not perpendicular to the white line. So the idea is to straighten up that line. I'm going to swipe back down so that it lines up with the white grid line. So now that I've swiped down, I can see the vertical alignment of that is near perfect. So that represents to me an accurate tilt shift for this particular image, and it becomes a little bit more realistic, and it certainly helps when you're pointing the camera upwards or downwards in order to get the building into the scene and you find there's just too much of an angle on your image. So adjusting up and down will take care of that tilt, and then adjusting left and right can also improve the alignment of the image. So in this case, I'm just going to bring that left-hand building corner right into that grid line, and we'll line that up now. That's looking pretty good. There's some other options in there, including the option to rotate, scale, and freeform transformation. But as I say, for my purposes, I tend to use the tilt option, which yields the most accurate results. So once you're happy with that, select the tick option, and that will save down the current edit. Let's go back into tools and see what else we can do. The next option is expand. I really like this next feature, expand, because it allows us to do exactly what it says, and that is expand the boundaries of the image. So if you're running out of space, you can select expand, and then you can choose whether you want to expand with a white border, black border, and if you go with the smart option, it actually applies the content aware fill that you normally find in apps like Photoshop. This is a good way of expanding your image. However, you'll notice that it's not entirely accurate and depends on the complexity of the image. You don't always get a great result the first time, and you can see it's made a bit of a mess of the cables in the sky, in which case I'd have to come back later and tidy those up. So the expand tool for me is mostly useful when I'm using it with the black or white border. This next tool I really love is called Selective, and it allows you to make selective adjustments to different areas of your image. So to begin with, we tap on the plus icon on the bottom of the screen, and then we tap on any point in the image to create our first area of focus. Let's tap on another point in the middle somewhere, tap on plus again, tap on another point, plus again, and yet another point. So now I have 3 points in the image that I can make adjustments to rather than applying the change to the overall image. So for example, I'll tap on the first point I created, and I'm going to use my finger again and swipe left and right to change the brightness in that area. So basically it changes the brightness from that point with a small radius and expands out slowly. So you can see that I'm increasing the brightness on the building on the left-hand side, and it's not affecting the brightness of the rest of the image. Let's go to that middle point and tap on it. And again, I can move left and right, and it's only controlling the front of the building, not the left-hand side and not the right-hand side of the building. So I can even out the exposure on that building. And now finally, on the last point that I created to the right-hand side of the building, I can bring that exposure down a little bit because it was slightly overexposed. And as you can see, that gives us an incredible amount of control over the lighting of the image. By the way, we're not confined to changing the brightness. Each of those points can be used to change contrast, saturation, and structure in the area around that point only. So again, very selective control over brightness, contrast, saturation, and the structure of the image on any of the points that you create. And you can just keep on adding points to get as much control as you want over all of those parameters on the image. A really powerful feature. And if you tap on the eye icon on the bottom sub-nav menu, you can use that to hide those points whilst you're previewing your image, release, and the points will return. And the next feature we're going to take a look at is brush. This allows us to brush in our adjustments. You can select from dodge and burn, exposure, temperature, and saturation. If we use the dodge and burn tool, for example, it's defaulting to dodge. So if I use my finger on that building on the left-hand side, I can brush in some lightness there. And if I move to the sky now, I'm just brushing in the sky so that it becomes lighter manually. So I can focus on a particular area of the image by brushing it in with the fingertip. So that's a really nice way of manually controlling the image. You can do that with exposure. You can do that with temperature. So as you can see, I've now added some more warmth just to the right-hand corner of the building. And saturation, we could just apply more saturation to a selected part of the image by brushing that in. So right now I'm just brushing in the panels of the building so that they have a little bit more of a kick. The next tool is a healing brush. I'm going to have to change image to demonstrate this. This is quite often used for healing blemishes on the skin. So it's ideal when you have a portrait and there's a blemish somewhere, you can simply tap on it and it will immediately heal the skin. The next one is called HDR SCAPE, and this is a great feature that applies a HDR, which is high dynamic range look to your image. You can select between nature, people, fine, and strong. Different presets available. It will give you a different look. For those of you that don't understand what HDR is, it stands for high dynamic range. And that is a process which provides multiple exposures on an image, puts them together, and provides a very surreal looking exposed image where everything is exposed evenly. The next option is called GLAMOUR Glow, and that provides a very soft filter over your image. We're going to switch over to a different image as this is more suited to a portrait rather than a landscape image. So here's a portrait I took a few moments ago on the iPhone in selfie mode. So we're going to try some of these presets out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's suppose I like the look of number 5 the most. It's applied a soft filter and a slight golden light glow. Now again, I'm going to use the swiping effect over the image to increase and decrease the glow effect. So if I want more of an effect, swipe along to the right, less, go over to the left. So a much more flattering look than you would achieve out of your phone by default. The next is tonal contrast. I'll stay with this image now. And again, we can just swipe left and right and it changes the contrast of the image. So I might give this one a little bit more contrast. Save that down. Back into tools. The next option is called drama, and it's called that for a reason because it adds drama to your image by giving you a very excessive amount of contrast. And there's a number of presets available to check out in the drama tool. The next filter is called vintage, which gives you that old film look, very reminiscent of some of the early filters of Instagram. The next option is grainy film. This allows us to apply some grain to the image. You get some presets which can change the overall color, tone, and hue. And again, very retro inspired filter there. RETROLUX, a bit more extreme. Pretty cool filters. Grunge. The grunge filter is actually really cool because it applies not only the retro filter, but a lot of noise and grunge that's kind of reminiscent of an old film that wasn't stored very well. And you can use your finger to slide over that and change the intensity of that grunge look. Now that's looking like a real retro photo. And again, there's a number of different styles of grunge. If you tap on the fourth icon along, we can apply different meshes over the image. The next one is black and white, and the options in this filter are much more sophisticated than you get in most apps because you can change the black and white over the red, orange, yellow, green, and blue spectrums, and each of those give you a different look. And again, you can use your finger over the image left and right to increase or decrease the intensity of the black and white filter over that original color range. So you can get a really high level of control over your black and white effect. And also you have the option of selecting from some preset filters, from contrast to bright, dark, film, and darken sky. Let's switch over to a new image now, and we'll try out the NOIR setting. And that's yet another black and white filter with a number of presets for different looks in black and white. For the next filter, we're going to need to open up a portrait again. We'll go back to that selfie image that I demonstrated earlier. Tools and portrait. And let's have a look at some of these presets. Wow, this first one is a little bit strange, but it's essentially applied some highlights to my eyes and softened the skin and applied a bit of intensity on the key light. Spotlight 2, smooth 1, smooth 2, eyes 1, eyes 2, combo 1, combo 2, and combo 3. They're the presets. You can also tap on the first icon along and you can bias the adjustments to different complexions from pale to fair to medium to dark. And again, you can use your finger to adjust the intensity of the effect left and right. The next one is called head pose. This one I find kind of strange, but you can essentially adjust the pose of the head by moving it up, down, and left and right. Really disconcerting when you actually use it in real time. Kind of looks fake. You can see that it's moving my face around but keeping the top part of my hair in place, and it really looks weird. But if you want to make a very slight change to your facial angle, you can move it up or down or left or right ever so slightly to improve the image. You can change the pupil size. That's weird. That's really weird. You can change. Now we're getting weird. You can change the smile. Okay, there's not much of a smile there. Oh, there you go. That looks better. I'm kind of deforming myself now, but it's pretty funny. And what else have we got? The focal length. Ooh, I can make myself fatter or thinner. That's pretty weird. But look, if you play around with it, there might be some use in this filter. I certainly tend to steer away from this type of thing. I think it looks ridiculous and unnatural. But if you spend a little bit of time with it, you might actually get a decent result using this filter. The next filter is called lens blur. And what I like about this is it allows you to create a very subtle background blur effect. So let's have a look at that image now. And you can toggle between radial and linear blur, and you can use your fingers by pinching up and down or left and right to change the intensity and direction of the blur. So back to radial, I can bring that point, the focus point, to, let's say, the middle of my face, and then I can pinch with my fingers and make the blur less or more pronounced around that focal point and tilt it in different directions as well. This gives you a lot of control over your background blur. The next is vignette. The vignette is a characteristic that's sometimes found in older lenses where the outer section of the image is darker or lighter than the inner point. And then once you've created your vignette, you can then use your finger, swipe left or right to apply lightness or darkness in the corners of the image. The next tool is called double exposure. This allows you to sandwich on top of your first image a second photo, and you can change the opacity of that second layer to full opacity, 0, or anywhere in between. The next option is text. This allows us to place text over our image. This has been vastly improved over the previous versions. There's so many different styles of fonts and layout to choose from. So let's tap on a couple to see what they look like. These are all presets, different font styles. As you can see, this lends itself really well for those wanting to post to social media, or if you want to create a photo watermark to protect your image. Very useful feature. So you can just tap on the style that you like, and once you find what you're looking for, then double tap on the text and go in and make your changes. And then you can move the position of that font, and you can also pinch and contract to make it larger or smaller. And the final feature we're going to take a look at is called frames. And this does exactly that. It puts a frame around your image. A number of different styles that you can choose from plain white to grunge borders, artistic effects in both black and white, film strip, Really cool if you want that retro look in particular. And once you've settled on the frame style, again, tap on the photo with your finger, swipe left and right to increase or decrease the border size. So there you have it, a comprehensive look at how to use Snapseed to up your photo editing game on your iOS or Android mobile device. Hopefully you enjoyed this overview. If you did, consider hitting me up with a like and also subscribing to the channel so you'll be notified of up and coming video releases. See you on the next one. Bye for now.